and banning this and banning that. This side is exceptional, and that this side is a solution provider, taking as a raw material something that is destructive to the macro environment and climate, using it as a raw material and producing products that are needed in society, that progress society and make society a better place. And that's really our objective in the petrochemical industry. And so we're immensely proud of the work that we're doing and the innovation that we have. And as I look back at these cameras, I look at the textiles that everybody's wearing, I look at everything in this room, it's made by our raw materials. And we're very proud of that. And I want to thank our associates for the tremendous work they're doing in reliability and quality, and in particular on safety. So thank you all again, and thank you very much for being here. Governor, I can do a big, lengthy introduction of you, but I think everybody in this room knows you very well. And more importantly, anything I will say will be what you will say, and hopefully any time that we have for some Q&A. And again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for taking the time, having the interest, the questions, and so forth, of being able to walk the floor here and learning about what we do here. And your time is very valuable, and we're deeply appreciative of it. So thank you very much. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thanks. It's good. I really actually appreciate that introduction. I remember one time back when I was a U.S. congressman, I was down in Florida, and I was throwing out the first pitch at a college baseball game. And so they announced me, the PA announcer was like, now throwing out the first pitch, Congressman Ron DeSantis. People were cheering. So I'm walking on the mound, and he starts reading my official full biography. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm on the mound, the catcher's sitting there squatting, and he's just reading, and I'm like, am I just going to make everyone wait and kind of sit through this biography? I'm like, no. So I kind of waved him off. I was like, hey, just cut it off, reared back, threw a perfect strike. Everyone starts cheering, whatever. And then when the cheers go down, he just kept reading my biography. And I was like, I didn't actually think anything of it. It turns out somebody videotaped that, and when opening day happened the next year, someone did a ranking of the top 5 first pitches by elected officials and the worst 5 first pitches by elected officials.
Oh, his was the best.
The worst, I mean, you guys have probably seen some of these guys that don't do very well. The best, though, were... The number 1 was George W. Bush at Yankee Stadium after 9/11, which was a good strike. Number 2 was JFK, and they ranked me number 3 amongst all elected officials. And part of the reason they said he threw a perfect strike, but he didn't make the crowd sit through his entire biography. So, however you can please people, you do. So it's interesting. I did my schooling post high school in New England. So I'm born and raised in Florida, had never been to New England in my life. I was a baseball player growing up in Dunedin, Florida, which is the spring training home of the Toronto Blue Jays, and great place to grow up if you like baseball. Yeah, just a blue-collar kid. Definitely had no desire of even leaving Florida for college, but I got recruited to play at places like Yale and Princeton, so I ended up playing baseball at Yale, and I showed up my first day there just like a kid from the west coast of Florida would do. I'm in flip-flops, jean shorts, a T-shirt, and that probably was fine where I came from. When you're dealing with kids that went to Andover Academy and all that, not exactly the way they're used to do. So it was kind of a culture shock for me, but I ended up experiencing 7 New England winters, which was not something that I had ever done. So now we have kids 6, 5, and 3, my wife and I, and they have never seen snow in their lives. We actually had on Christmas Day this past year, it got down to 19 degrees, but there was no precipitation. We didn't get anything. So the question is, the first 2 contests for this whole nomination stuff, Iowa, New Hampshire, the question is, my kids, because we're going to be up in both states a lot over the next 100 days, the question is they are going to see snow for the first time. Is it going to be New Hampshire first or Iowa first? And most of the people in New Hampshire seem to think it's going to happen in New Hampshire first. So we'll see. They're looking forward to being able to do that and have fun with it. I also was somebody who, so I ended up playing baseball, doing all that. I ended up going to Harvard Law School. And I was somebody that was blue collar growing up. My mom was a nurse. My dad worked for Nielsen TV ratings. Back then, they had to put the box on the TV set for all the families to generate the ratings. So he did that. And, you know, I was working minimum wage jobs to get through college, doing all this stuff. And so I go there and, you know, I have an opportunity to start making more money, but this was after 9/11. So I volunteered to serve in the Navy, and I volunteered to deploy to Iraq after that. So literally, you know, I went from Harvard to Fallujah within like 2 years of doing that. The only guy probably in that whole theater who could say that they did that, or not very many who could say that. But that showed me a lot of some of the issues now that we see going on with the terrorism. We were in Western Iraq, places like Fallujah, Ramadi. You had Al Qaeda in Iraq was wreaking havoc at the time, but you also had Iran funding a lot of the Shia militias in different parts of Baghdad that were killing a lot of U.S. troops. So I got to see that. I also did some time at the terrorist detention facility in Gitmo. Some of those people that were there, like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And you see, and then even when I got out of active duty, we saw campaigns against ISIS, and we saw a lot of barbarism. And these are nasty people, I mean, no question. But I'll tell you, I never saw the depths of depravity that we've seen over this weekend with decapitating infants, what they're doing to elderly people, all this stuff, really, really sick stuff. And it just shows you, I mean, you know, this is a very chaotic and dangerous world that we have out there. I've done a lot with you know, Florida. We have the second highest Israeli American population in the country. And since I've been governor, we've had like the rest of the world's moved to Florida, but we've had a lot of Orthodox Jews moving to Florida in particular. So we've got a real strong connection between Israel and the state of Florida. Clearly a great ally for the United States as well. And we've done a lot. So this is something. I was down in South Florida Tuesday morning. We announced we're going to be expanding our state-based sanctions against Iran because the money Iran gets, they send for terrorism. So that's something people, but I mean, it was definitely raw for people because they knew people who were missing, they knew people who had died, they knew people that had been escaped, and so a really, really significant turning point. A lot of people are like, you know, they're visiting, and not just people that kind of live there part-time or whatever. You know, we've got a lot of tour groups that go over there. They tour all the biblical sites. So we have a lot of Floridians there. Federal government really wasn't doing what they needed to do to get people out. So we just did an executive order yesterday. We're going to be sending flights from Israel back to Florida to bring people home from the war zone. And that's just, you know, you got to step up and lead when duty calls. So we're going to do that. And we weren't able to land yet, but I think we've gotten that fixed, and so I think they're going to let us bring in planes into Israel and then get people home. So that's, you know, with Florida, the number of Floridians over there is clearly in the hundreds, and maybe even more than that. So it's really, really important that we get people back to safety, and it just shows that there's a lot of problems in the world. Now, if you look overall at what's going on, our economy here with the prices and the interest rates and all the things that we're having to deal with is making it impossible for people to be able to get ahead, particularly raising kids. And we're just not going to succeed as a country if that ends up happening. The problems that we have, though, are government-induced. The government's policies with COVID were disaster, supply chain disrupted, you have the labor market disrupted, printing and borrowing trillions and trillions of dollars. Of course you're going to have inflation when you do that. So now you're in a situation where grocery bills have doubled. To buy a home, if you bought the average price home in 2019 compared to the average price home now, yeah, the top line price has gone up because of inflation, real estate's gone up, but the monthly mortgage payment is over twice as much today for that same home that it would have been in 2019, and because you have high rates. So that's not sustainable because people's incomes haven't gone up by that much. Indeed, they haven't really gone up at all, and on a real basis in most states have declined. Florida is one of the exceptions, but you see the point. So the question is like, okay, how do you get out of this mess? Well, one, they need to stop spending so much money. You know, that has driven inflation. The Federal Reserve needs to stop trying to be an economic central planner and focus on stable prices. That should be the only thing that they're concerned about. The bureaucracy and the red tape and the attempt to control the economy, that increases costs too, particularly on small businesses. You got to liberate them from that. But then energy. We need to use our own domestic energy. We should be the dominant energy producer in this world. That'll be lower gas prices for you. It'll be lower prices for other things, because that impacts everything that goes on in the economy, and it's going to be good for jobs and industrial base, but it'll be good for our national security. The people that do us harm want us to turn our back on our own domestic energy. When we are energy dominant, that hurts Iran, China, Russia, Venezuela. So from a national security perspective, it's a no-brainer. So we will do that, and we'll make sure we're able to get it. We're also going to bring the restoration of this country's sovereignty back. If you look what's happened at the southern border, it's been a total catastrophe. You have over 7 million people come illegally since January of 2021. And I can tell you the cartels are involved in this. There's sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, there's all that stuff. But even if you say 99%, are no problem, perfect like that, and I don't think it is that, but let's just say that's 70,000, that 1% is 70,000 people that may mean ill to this country. So do you think our enemies weren't trying to exploit that border, knowing it was open? Of course they are. And I've said before the whole Israel-Hamas situation, I said, and I hope I'm wrong, but I said I would bet that there would be a terrorist attack in this country that will be able to link back to someone coming across the border. You have people from Iran, China, Russia, the Middle East. They're coming across. It's not just people from Central America. So we're going to stop that on day one. We'll declare it a national emergency. I'll have military at the border. We will do a border wall, but I think more important than that, we're going to lean in against the Mexican drug cartels. We're going to treat them as foreign terrorist organizations, because they're invading our country and killing our people. We have tens of thousands of people that are dying because of the fentanyl that's being poured in to this country. And it's not just people that are addicted to drugs, because what happens is if you lace something with fentanyl, so you'll have like college students studying for exams and they think they're taking something. Look, maybe they shouldn't be doing that, of course, Adderall, but no one would think that you would die from some of the things. But if it's laced with fentanyl, they can die. We had a situation in Florida. It'll kill you now. 18-month-old baby is on the carpet crawling on an Airbnb rental, happened to have fentanyl residue on the carpet, ingested, and the baby died from fentanyl overdose. What is that? I mean, what do you do as a parent, just crawling on the carpet and that happens? So this is just going on. And the people in D.C., they basically just shrugging their shoulders. It's not something that they care about. So my view is that those are, they're killing our people. We have a responsibility to respond. And so we will use force against them. They will cut through barriers, bring fentanyl in. I mean, it's a total disgrace that this has been allowed to happen. So you're going to see a new sheriff in town when it comes to that. And look, the problem of addiction and stuff, it's very, very difficult. In Florida, we actually created a coordinated opioid response network throughout our state. We've got probably now 25 to 27 of our counties, most of the populous counties. But it recognizes that, someone goes to the hospital, overdose, they just get discharged. They're likely going to relapse at that point if they have nothing else kind of going for them. So we have an ability to link them with services and treatment. And the result has been the relapse rate of people that have gone through that program is under 10%. And we're the only state in the country that had a decline in overdose deaths year over year since we put that program in place. So that's the type of thing that we would obviously want to do federally to help states be able to manage that. But you got to do the supply, you got to do the treatment, and then you also got to just, and we do this in Florida, from the demand side, let people know, you're taking some drug off the street, it very well could be laced with fentanyl, and you could be really risking your life, and particularly for the young kids. So we've done that. And then I think the education has been something we've done a lot on in Florida. How these schools have gotten off kilter with some of the nonsense that's going on there. We had a big fight that the media got involved with where we had to fight Disney because, the issue was Disney wanted there to be taught to kindergarten, first graders that you can change gender. and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, wait a minute. I'm a parent of a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. They need to be focused on reading, writing, math, and science. And so we won that battle, but the fact that we're even having that conversation, it shows you education's gone off the rails. We should be educating kids. It shouldn't be about a political agenda or indoctrinating. And in Florida, we have universal school choice, and our performance speaks for itself. We're now one of the top performing states. We were never that way, me growing up. The other thing we're going to tackle is crime. You look at our cities, they're falling apart because of crime, and that is a deliberate choice of policymakers to go easy on people that are committing crimes. And I don't care if you're in a red state, I don't care if you're in a blue city, criminals need to be held accountable. They need to pay for their crimes. If not, they will victimize more people. And we've already seen, San Francisco, Baltimore, Philadelphia, these places are decaying as a result of those bad policies. And so we're going to make sure that we restore law and order in this country. We're also going to restore the Constitution as it was envisioned to be. It's supposed to be a limited government. It's not supposed to be an unaccountable bureaucracy. And part of that is bringing accountability for what the government did during COVID, which was a huge overreach and so many different, you had states in this country that forcibly closed churches while you could go to a liquor store or even a strip club, but you couldn't go, and that's unacceptable. Now, not in Florida. We fought back against that. But then the federal government's issuing rules saying you have to take the COVID shot that was under emergency use at the time or lose your job. A nurse has to do it or lose her job. Now, we fought back against both of those in Florida and protected people, but that's a massive abuse of power that they did. And the problem is nobody's been held accountable for any of this stuff. And I think that if anything happened in the future, I think they'd run the same playbook all over again. And we can't let that happen. So we're going to bring accountability to that. It's going to make a big difference. And so much of what's going on with our country, particularly you look at D.C., you look at all this, a lot of it's theater. A lot of it is entertainment, chaos, but it's not producing results. And leadership, at the end of the day, is are you producing results for the people that you're representing? If you're not doing that, then it doesn't matter what the show is because there's nothing. It's like political empty calories. So in Florida, everything I said I would do, we delivered on. We've cut taxes by more than anybody in the history of the state. We've run big budget surpluses. We've actually paid down almost 25% of our state's total debt just since I've been governor in 2019. From the inception of Florida to the present, we knocked out almost a quarter of it. We do have universal school choice. We enacted a Parents' Bill of Rights. We have a 50-year low in the crime rate. We've done things like eliminate sanctuary cities and push back on illegal immigration. We've done ESG. We kneecapped ESG and our pension funds, where we're not going to let them, BlackRock and these companies, take teachers' pension money, police officers, and pursue a political agenda. Yes. We want it to be about the returns for them. And we even took $2 billion away from BlackRock, who had been managing that in our pension fund. So we've really led on that issue. We've done so much on mental health. We've done a lot on combating opioid abuse, as I mentioned. So we're all about delivering results. And what is the total? Florida is now ranked #1 economy of all 50 states by CNBC. We're now ranked #1 education of all 50 states by U.S. News. If you want to send your kid to a state university in Florida, in-state tuition, I don't let them raise it, $6,400 a year for in-state tuition. Out-of-state tuition, $16,000. That's less than a lot of in-state tuition throughout the country. Of course, we have no income tax, which I know people in New Hampshire appreciate, 50-year low crime rate. And so #1 for new business formations and #1 for net in-migration and #1 fastest growing state over the last year. So that ultimately is it all about. Are you providing opportunities for people? Are people able to be in your state and do well? Do people want to move their businesses there? And we've been able to deliver that in spades. And so it's not about me going out there creating a show. It's about me leading and bringing home big results for the people that I represent. And that's what we need in Washington. I think the time for excuses is over. I think the time for suboptimal outcomes is over. I'm not running for president because I want to just manage the decline of this country. I want to reverse the decline. I want to restore what's great about America, and we want a new birth of freedom throughout the land. And so we'll be able to get that done. Happy to take any questions. For those of you who will participate in this New Hampshire primary, I want your support. I promise you I'll be a great nominee. I'll be someone you could be proud of, and as president, we won't let you down. Thanks. I'm happy to take any questions.
What would be your policy on using a state's National Guard for fighting overseas? It seems right now we are constantly sending our National Guard to foreign lands. They're not here to protect our northern border. So
He's asking about money being.
Well, first of all, I mean, I think your northern border needs to be protected. That's the federal government's responsibility. I will be there to help states up here, up north, who have had problems. And I think even more importantly, I'm going to deputize state and local officials to assist the federal government with enforcing immigration law. I mean, right now they come across Texas. Texas isn't allowed to send them back over the border. Well, of course you're going to get more and more people. So we will do that, and that will be a priority for sure. Now, look, in terms of National Guard, the question is where are they going? What are they doing? I mean, we've got troops in various places. We've got troops in Syria. We've got troops in this. What are we trying to accomplish in terms of defending this country's national security? And I think for really since the end of the Cold War, our policies have been very muddled. I don't think they've been very clear in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. We're now in an era where after the Soviet Union collapsed, America's the only superpower, and then the 90s was like nothing, no one could touch us. And then September 11th happened, and we said, well, actually, we're not invulnerable. You have people that could come right into your country and kill 3,000 people. So then we had the age of fighting stateless threats, stateless actors like terrorist groups. And I think the thought was amongst a lot of people was this is what it's going to be going forward. And what's happened in Israel with Hamas should show you terrorism clearly isn't gone, and that's something that we will contend with. But we do have this great power rivalry that is ahead that has emerged with China. And how are we able to check China's ambitions? Because if China is the world's leading superpower, if they eclipse us economically and militarily, you will feel that as an American. I mean, it will change how this country operates. And so my view is you need more hard power to check them. I don't know that that means you send National Guard. I think like we have forces array around the world. I would have more forces in the Indo-Pacific. I'd have more ships that we need to build and send to the Indo-Pacific to deny them the ability to realize their ambitions. But that is tied to a very concrete national objective of not being surpassed by, because if they control commerce in the Indo-Pacific, they already have a lot of influence on our society now. I mean, you see what happens, like a Wall Street executive will say something about China, they get mad, they got to come out and grovel, they got to apologize. The NBA, you can't even say anything bad, and that's now. Just imagine if they were the dominant power in this country. So we've got work to do. I think we'll be able to do it, and I think the 21st century will be an American century, but not on the current course that we're doing. We need some changes. We need new leadership. Yes.
In this past week, he attacked the Prime Minister of Israel. So why should someone vote for you over him?
Well, that's one reason, just what you said. I've actually delivered better on America First policies than he did, because I've delivered on 100% of my promises. He did not. He said he was going to drain the swamp, and I appreciated that. He did not drain the swamp. It got worse. He also said that he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it, which I supported, and that didn't happen. And now he was in Iowa recently, and he said, well, there was never any mechanism where he could make Mexico pay. He's like, you can't just tell him to pay. That's not what he was saying in 2016. I was at those rallies, I remember, and said, but here's the thing. He actually could have done that. Yeah, Mexico's not just going to pay you money, of course, but you could impose fees on remittances that people send back to Mexico and Central and these other. You'd raise billions of dollars. You could easily do that. I will do that. That'll be billions of dollars where you can actually get that done. So I think that some of the things that you say you don't like, I think that's part of the reason some of the other things didn't get done. I mean, why would I want to alienate anyone unnecessarily? Like if I take a strong position and you disagree with me, that's fine. That's what leadership is. But to go out and just take pot shots at Netanyahu in a time of war right now, I don't see where that's very productive. And you got to be, as a chief executive, whether it's governor or president, you got to be disciplined. You got to be focused. All the stuff that I think we want to see for this country to get it back on track, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to fight you on that. If everything becomes a sideshow, if we have all this constant drama and chaos in the background, that detracts from your ability to actually get the job done. I think it's also important that if you want to see changes in this country, that you nominate somebody that has a good chance to win. And you look in Florida, he was able to win Florida by 3 points. I won it by 20 points. Why? Because some of those voters who were supportive of me and thankful for what we did, they just won't vote for him. And there's a lot of people in this country that just are not going to go there. We saw it with the midterms. And so we just have to be honest about that. The other thing is, even if somehow he could win, he's a lame duck on day one. How is a lame duck president going to be transferred? We've never had that happen in all of American history. And so I think you need somebody that can serve 2 terms, because you do things and then you got to implement them and then they need to stick. And what happened with Biden came in, he reversed 100% of Trump's policies, gone in a whiff in January of 2021. The only thing that lasted was the court appointments, and the tax policy is going to expire soon, so that's still there. But man, you need somebody, and I don't think we've ever had somebody that's really, really made a big difference that has only served a one single term like that. And I also think that because of some of the issues you raise, you need to be able to attract really good people to work for you. You can't do it you can make the decisions, you can set the vision, but if you don't have a whole group of people that are there working to advance the agenda, and not just who your attorney general is going to be, which is important, and I'll have somebody that's very good, but who's going to be 2 or 3 rungs below that are going to be there doing, and because the bureaucracy is not going to want to see change. I mean, they're going to fight all this stuff tooth and nail. So you got to have that there to be. You got to be able to attract good people. You got to have people to say, and you can't just recycle the same people from D.C. That's not going to work. I mean, we've seen that. So you got to inspire somebody to be willing to pick up their family and move from Wisconsin to D.C. for 2, 4, 6, 8 years, move from New Hampshire to D.C. for 2, 4, 6, 8 years, knowing you're on a mission to help return this government back to we the people. I will be able to do that. I don't know that he's going to be able to get a lot of takers on that, just because I think the way he's treated a lot of his employees and over the years, and I don't think he'd be able to staff the administration in a way that would lead to success. That means the bureaucrats run the show, and that means we don't get the change that we need. So on all those things, a focused and disciplined executive, that's me. Somebody that has a proven record of big political success, that's me. Proven record of delivering on 100% of promises, that's me. And that's ultimately what we need. Yes.
Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner will work for Trump.
A couple weeks ago, we talked to the Border Patrol and a bunch of sheriffs from all over the country. And with the tens of thousands of people that have come across the border and are living off the American taxpayers, their free phones and going all over the country, what are we going to do with all these people?
I'm sending them back. I'm sending them back. They're not here legally. We don't have the resources to be funding this. The more you fund it, the more people come illegally. So when you send back, then that creates the disincentive. And I'll give you a small example. Florida. I get involved in this. I've sent troops to Texas. We do different things. And they say, well, you're not a border media. You're not a border state. Why do you? First of all, everybody gets affected. Every community's become a border community when it comes to fentanyl and all these things. But we are a maritime border state. So I have boats that will be trying to come through from Haiti, Cuba, these places. And that's the responsibility of the U.S. Coast Guard to stop that. But, they only have so many boats. They're not able to stop all of it. So we've had, last year I had situations where, you were having, 200 illegals dropped off in the Florida Keys. And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. And so I surged resources, Florida's maritime resources, where Coast Guard couldn't get them. We would intercept. We turn them over to the Coast Guard. Coast Guard would bring them back to Haiti or wherever. And you know what happened? The number of boats that tried to come to Florida declined significantly. Why? Why would you get on a rickety boat, go across a dangerous trek, if the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to end up back where you started? It's just not worth it. And I'd say it's the same thing with the southern border. People are doing all these things to get there, and if they're just going to be sent back, then they're not going to want to do it anymore. So putting that in, I think, is really important for deterrence. I'm also just very concerned about who is coming into this country. A lot of these people are military-age males from all over the world. Now, look, I mean, is every one of those people bad? No, or I mean, who knows what it's like? But do not tell me that you don't have bad apples that want to come across that border. You do. In fact, our own government acknowledges that people have come over that are on the terror watch list. Dozens and dozens of people on the terrorist watch list. Is that something that's keeping this country secure? So it's a huge, huge problem, but we're going to be very aggressive. And here's the thing. Trump obviously made promises with it, but other people have been making promises for decades. This has been an issue for decades. And no other countries don't really have the same issue. When they resolve to do it, they just do it. It's only this country that's doing it. So we're gonna take it on. It's gonna be a day one issue. You're gonna have a lot of resources, and I'm gonna put a lot of personal attention towards it, because just as an American, it's humiliating for our country not to be able to control our own borders, to see what's happening, to see these border towns are getting totally overrun. I mean, you want to go to like a hospital, like you can't get into a hospital. The schools are becoming overrun. All these the justice system, massive burden on law-abiding, hardworking Americans, and that's not right. Yep.
Thanks, Governor. Thanks for taking our questions, and thanks for coming to Merrimack. You talked about building a team. Who are some of the people on that team? Like, any ideas on shortlist for VP?
Do you have any recommendations?
I don't have any recommendations. No, that's good job.
Well, yeah. Would he be able to deliver New Hampshire for us in the general election? We'll see. So here's what I'd say. Rather than me put it, because the minute you put out a name, then those people will get smeared, by the media and stuff. So you put a target on people's back. But I could tell you some of the qualities and some of the key positions. So Attorney General, for example, my Attorney General, right? Yeah. So my Attorney General. So the DOJ, huge problem. Just totally off the rails with some of the things they're doing. I mean, the notion that Merrick Garland would support having FBI surveil parents going into school board meetings in like Northern Virginia is a total travesty. The fact that FBI was working with the social media companies to censor stuff during the election of 2020, during COVID, they were working to do the government's bidding by censoring. I mean, debates about whether you lock down the world or not. In a democratic society, that's a pretty important debate to have. What are you going to accomplish by locking down? And what are the harms of that? What are the counter arguments? They just short-circuited that. If you put up things online about that, they would take it down back in March of 2020. You raise questions about schools or mask mandates, they take it down. So it was a massive abuse of power. Government basically orchestrating these tech companies to do that. That's, by the way, a violation of your First Amendment rights, because a private business, can be a publisher and put what it wants, but if they're acting at the behest of the government can't do indirectly what it's prohibited from doing directly under the Constitution. So you go into there, it's a huge problem. So you have somebody that every time you're taking action to right the ship, there's going to be big time blowback. Media is going to attack you. The entrenched bureaucrats are going to attack you. And so the question is do you have the backbone necessary to know that that's just the price of leadership? Or are you somebody that's going to go to Washington and try to be liked by the powers that be there? Let me tell you, Washington has gotten where it is because Washington looks out for itself. it puts itself over the interest of the American public. How else do you rationalize that 5 of the 8 wealthiest counties in the United States of America are suburbs of Washington, D.C.? How did that happen? It happened because the political class and how they've done it. So you're going to face a lot of blowback, and you've just got to be willing to know that is that's kind of confirmation that you're doing the right thing when you get that. Not everyone's wired like that. Some people just don't like. I mean, it's tough. You are going to go through the ringer, but the question is, is it worth it to right the ship of this country? There's a lot of people that have done a lot more to sacrifice than anything we have to do by just taking arrows. Like I get arrows. I mean, I get constantly attacked. I've been attacked more than any other candidate combined in terms of, media spending, negative ads, all this other stuff. That just goes with the territory. You got to do it. And so example that I have from Florida, our Surgeon General in Florida is a guy named Dr. Joseph Ladapo. I brought him in from UCLA. He was in March of 2020, like one of maybe a handful of people saying, locking down the country isn't smart, forcing people, to wear masks isn't smart, kids need to be in school, all this stuff. And so I brought him in, I said, listen, you're going to be the only Surgeon General of all 50 states, most likely, that's going to be willing to go out and take those positions. And he's been vindicated on all of them, by the way. And I said, you just got to be wired for that. And he's like, I'm good. And so sure enough, he goes and he's in. And, I remember we went in, this was like, I don't know, this is probably 6-9 months into COVID or whenever he got on board. We said schools, so we said schools must be open, and we were proud to do that. But what the schools were doing is if one student tested positive for COVID, they were sending home like all these, and these are healthy kids.
Ridiculous.
You don't quarantine healthy people. That was not what you do. But the parents then are like, okay, my kid is perfectly healthy and they're not allowed to go to school for the next week or 2 weeks or so. And so we ended healthy quarantines when he came, and that was against CDC. But it was the right thing. Now everyone's followed Florida because it's the right thing to do. And so we were making a big impact. And then he's doing his thing. So I remember a month or 2 later, I saw him. I said, listen, I haven't followed what you've been doing lately, but I see the media is attacking you a lot, so you must be doing a good job. And he laughed, but it's true. I mean, that's just the nature of it. There's narratives that get developed in this society now. There's always a current thing. There's always something that people are trying to push, and you need people that are going to be able to see through that, have a solid grounding, and do what's right, knowing you're going to face a lot of blowback. No one faced more blowback than me during COVID with what we were doing in Florida. Constant attacks, all this stuff. And I had a lot of supporters saying, you are making big mistakes here politically. You got to just mandate something. Just tell and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't believe that that's the right policy. And I got to care more about the people that I represent than I do about myself anyways. If it doesn't work out for me, it doesn't work out for me. But now, when you do the right thing and you do it for the right reason, in the long run, things tend to work out. They really do. So those are the types of people that I think you really need at this day and age. Going to the swamp and becoming captive to the swamp, that just isn't going to work. I mean, that's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Yes.
So with the ambitions in your agenda, you're going to need a strong congressional partner so that you can legislate instead of rule
Good
by
question.
executive order.
Good
So
question.
I'm curious your take on the political theater that Matt Gaetz and his peers are currently.
Good
doing in
question.
Congress. And then secondarily, how
He
do you
asked about the
form a
political
unified,
theater Matt
strong
Gaetz is
GOP
doing.
coalition in a caucus so that you can legislate and solidify concrete, as you said, your agenda. items instead
DeSantis
of
supporters
just
are
having
smarter.
executive
They just
order
are.
flip-flopping, term to term.
No, look, I think you make a great point. I mean, there's a role for executive orders, but the executive orders cannot govern society as a whole. And even when you're doing an executive order about the conduct of the executive branch, the next president can just rip them up. So they don't have staying power. There is a limited role for them, but that. So you got to legislate things so that has the staying power. And what you're seeing now is a total clown show up in Washington, D.C. High on political theater,
Yep.
high on kind of the chaos and everything like that. People are getting TV hits, people are raising money, all this other stuff. What results are they producing with all that's going on? And I don't see any. And part of the reason is there's just a lack of leadership. There's a lack of leadership. Some of it's understandable. Republicans have a narrow majority in the House. They're 51-49 down in the Senate. And of course, Biden in the White House, having a president there that can give the leadership does help bring people together. And what I found in Florida, I mean, people, it's like before I became governor of Florida, there would always be things written about how the governor and the legislature in Florida were at loggerheads, this and that, and like a huge amount of controversy that people would talk about. Now I'm governor, and we go in and we basically get everything done, first session all the way through. And now people go, oh, they just do whatever he wants, they just rubber stamp. But like, no, that's not the way it works. I mean, I was coming in with, there was a history of conflict. And what I had to say is, okay, here's what I want to do. Tell me what you want to do. If it's important to you, it's important to me, unless it violates promises or principles. And so, I want you to be successful. And hopefully, and what it is people that get elected in the legislative branch, they get elected on certain things. They have constituencies. They have certain ambitions. And the way you don't beat them over the head and say, you just got to do what I say, you create an agenda where it's in their interest to want to get the agenda. President Reagan, he had a Democrat House his whole time. And yet he was able to get the agenda because he went over the heads of the congressmen, spoke to the people, and the people were like, yeah, we need to change. You guys need to help. So that's kind of what we did in Florida. It was just they'd go back to their districts, and the people there would be like, you better be helping the governor. You better be supporting the governor. That's what they wanted to see. They wanted them to be supporting the agenda. So I think we'll be able to do something similar to that. And people say, oh, what about this person, a speaker, that? Like, who can you work with? Like, I can work with anybody. Why? Because it's not personal to me. It's not personal at all. I have a job to do. I've got to get the job done. If someone said bad things about me in the past, that bothers some people. Obviously, we see with the Netanyahu comments, that's all about Netanyahu sending a congratulation tweet to Biden in November of 2020. That's why he's attacking him, because that really bothered him.
What did I say? That's what I said on the live
to me, that's
stream
just not how I
last night.
operate.
I said that.
I've got to
Does he
put
watch
aside
me?
that. I've put
Is he
people
one of my
in my
non-viewers?
administration in Florida who
I think he
were
does.
really opposed to me when I first ran for governor in 2018 in the primary. But if they can do the job and our values align and they're going to be able to deliver, why would I get mad at that? That's just politics. So I'll work with anybody. And oh, by the way, I'll work with the other party. I'm not going to change what I believe. But you may disagree with someone in the other party 80% of the time. You fight them on the 80. That's fine. But if there are 20%, I'm happy to make some progress there. I think we need to start doing that as a country. And some of the stuff that I've done in Florida, you'll hear the media say, oh, they're doing this. Almost, I would say probably 90% of the big things we've done passed close to unanimously in the legislature. I mean, if you look at our tax bills, you look at our environmental stewardship, you look at some of our criminal I mean, like a lot of this got really big support. Now, some of those people may not want to necessarily be working with me, but I think they realized this is what the public wanted, so you did it. So that's what you should have to do. But you have to have a strategy to actually get this stuff done, and that particularly in the U.S. Senate, where you use this thing called budget reconciliation that has 50 votes to get, but you can only do certain things in that. Biden really expanded what could be done there. His whole agenda, he got through with 50 senators. He never got 60 votes on any of this stuff. So we're already planning everything we talk about. What can you put into that vehicle? And you get a few bites at the apple on that to be able to bring as much in for a landing as possible. I do think there are things you'll get 60 for, but those are ones that really people feel they have to vote that way. Otherwise, they could face some political repercussions. But I'm also mindful just the incentives in our political system right now are to oppose the other guy. So I get in, there's going to be a lot of incentives on the left to kind of, be very negative. That's fine. You just got to navigate through that, but I recognize that that's there. Yes.
So first, thank you for coming and visiting us in Huntsman. I got a submitted question that asks, do you have any plans to start making college more affordable for our children so they aren't so much in debt when they come out of school?
Yes, and it's important. So part of it I mentioned in Florida, I just don't let them raise tuition. So you can go, University of Florida, and this was not true when I was growing up, U.S. News ranked them the 5th highest public university in the country. Wall Street Journal actually did a college ranking, private and public. Florida was ranked 15th in the country of all universities and the top ranked public, according to the Wall Street Journal. So to be able to do that for $6,400 a year, I mean, a lot of these, like California, I think the in-state tuition is like $20-some thousand a year. So we've put our money where our mouth is. Now, how you do that nationally, I think there's a couple things. One, deal with these student loans in a more intelligent way. Right now, colleges are incentivized to raise tuition because they know you can just take out more loans. Heck, if it takes you 6 years to get a degree, that's better for the colleges because they get more money. Those incentives are totally wrong. So we're going to flip those on its head by saying any loan money is ultimately going to have to be backed by the universities themselves. So you're going to have an incentive to graduate people on time, focusing on programs that really, really matter. You know, this zombie studies, all this nonsense
Zombie
that's out
studies is a
there.
real
Look,
thing. I didn't
if
know
that's
it was
what you
real. I
want
thought
to
he
do
was
for
making
your
it up.
life, fine. But like, we
It's a real
can't be
degree.
saying that we
You can
should
get a
be
degree in zombie
subsidizing
studies.
that in ways that are
zombie
causing
studies
tuition to go up
professor
for
got
everybody
mad
else.
for
So
this.
I think what you'll see is the colleges say, okay, I got to produce people that can do. They're not going to have an unlimited amount of money that they keep raising tuition. They're going to change how they operate in terms of the courses that they're offering. And I think the incentives end up getting better. I also think states should, and we're going to work on ways to incentivize this. You know, there should be an ability to obtain a degree without having to go into debt. I mean, you know, maybe you have to work a part-time job or something like that during the school year, but you should be able to do it without going into any debt. There's got to be some avenue to be able to do that. And then the final thing I'll say is we need to stop acting like a 4-year brick and ivy university is the only way you can be successful. It is one way. And it's a good way for a lot of people. But if you look at the number of degrees that have been churned out in this country over the last 30 years, because, you know, when I was growing up, they said, you got to get that degree. If you don't get the degree, you're not going to be successful. The reality is we've had a lot of people go to college who probably shouldn't have gone. They go into debt. They drop out without getting the degree at all. Then we've had other people that have gone through the motions, gone into debt, have degrees that really aren't worth very much. And so you have a lot of people, and then, look, if you end up working in a job you could have at a high school after going debt and all this, that is
Right.
not optimal for society. But it was almost like skilled trades and vocational pursuits were frowned upon, as if somehow that means what, you're not better than some of these? I can tell you right now, in Florida, we do vocational in middle school all the way through high school. We graduate kids with certifications in welding and aircraft mechanic, all this stuff. And they're making really good money right out of high school and eventually are able to do a lot of stuff. So is that person somehow lesser than somebody that went $100,000 in debt and has that degree in zombie studies? I don't think so. So part of it is just saying there's more than one way to pursue successful careers. And what I've seen is the students who get trained up in like electrical and stuff, because Florida's a growing state, so there's more and more need for this. These guys do that for 4 or 5 years, and then they start their own companies. And then they start, you know, and they build from there. So there's great opportunities with that. So I want to see skilled trades be important. If we want to bring back manufacturing from China, part of that is the tax policy, all this other, for sure, you got to incentivize that. But businesses are going to be able to invest more here if they know that they have a skilled workforce that they can rely on. So we're going to work really hard to be able to, you're going to be able to do that much cheaper than you're going to be able to do for the colleges and universities. And then finally, I just because it's in the news, like, you know, when I see like these Harvard students out, you know, celebrating Hamas, it's like, okay, you know, they're decapitating babies, they're raping women, they're doing all this stuff. Is that really the best thing to be doing, to go out and to be cheering that? And yet you have all these Harvard student groups, some of these other student groups signing letters saying that this is great and all this other stuff. And, you know, honestly, it's embarrassing for our country, but there is definitely a sickness in academia that I think has been on display here. And, you know, when I make the joke that, you know, I'm one of the few people to get through both Harvard and Yale and come out more conservative than when I went in. And that's not an easy thing to do. But even back then, you know, very, very liberal professors, all that. But I would have never seen that type of, I think, behavior where you would be celebrating murder of innocent people in the most brutal ways imaginable. So, you know, it's like, I mean, I'm optimistic about the country, but it's like, man, we've got some challenges. I mean, let's just be clear. Right there.
I just want to ask, like, what policies you are going to introduce to improve the education system of the school?
Great. So we started touching on some of the stuff. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to revamp the accreditation for higher education. I think there's things we can do that are going to facilitate better performance at universities. We are going to do nationwide. We're going to do a program for school choice for every parent, K through 12. Now, it'll probably be focused on low-income parents to start. In Florida, we have it universal now. And there's been a debate about school choice, private scholarships, charter schools, all this for many decades now. And the people that opposed it said all that's going to do is hurt public education and all this other stuff. And so I think Florida is a real life example to show that that's not true. Because our performance, we're third and fourth respectively in fourth grade reading, fourth grade math. That was not true when I was growing up. Having choice, we have 363,000 students in charter schools, which are public schools, but they're not controlled by the school district and don't have the influence of the school unions, which in places like California and Chicago have really, really harmed the educational system. And if you took those 363,000 students and they were their own state, they're disproportionately low income, disproportionately African American and Hispanic. The group would be in the top 5 in performance in the entire United States if it was its own state. If you look at what we've been able to do with people that have gone through private scholarships, that's a parent that has money that they can now go and take to a school of their choice. Sometimes the school offers a program that maybe they don't offer in their neighborhood school. Maybe they want to have religious education as part of that, so they're able to do it. So that's the parent's decision to be able to make that happen. But what's happened in Florida now is the school districts now embrace choice within the school district. So I went to Dunedin High School in Dunedin, Florida, because that's where I lived and that's where I could go. Now you'd have the ability to go all throughout the school district if there are magnet programs, if there are other things. So schools have an incentive now to innovate, to specialize in certain things, and then parents can have decisions just within our school districts. Forget about the charter and the private. They're able to do that. That has improved education in the state of Florida. I've had people move for COVID. You know, they were locking the kids out of school in a lot of these places. The families moved down. And particularly in like the Northeast, I would say the view of Florida for education had been generally negative. And maybe some of that in the past was justified. But they come now and they're like, my gosh, this is school. They're doing normal stuff. I don't have to worry about, what I see in like, Brooklyn or Manhattan or some of the stuff that's going on. So we've had really good reviews and a lot of families have moved in, but it's all about powering the parents so that they're able to do. So what I envision is something like a tax credit program with like corporate income tax where a corporation could earmark a certain amount of their tax liability every year for the scholarship fund. And then you run it and basically you set the income level and anything underneath there can apply for the scholarship. And I think that's important because if you look at a place like Chicago, you're going to have another generation of failures the way those schools are there. You've got to give opportunities to get out of that. And what will happen is when they start losing students, they're going to have to start changing how they do things. So Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, all those places, I think is really, really important. And then what it'll do is it'll spark entrepreneurship and innovation within education. Because if there's a certain amount of scholarship money available, you're going to have more people that are going to be willing to start schools and do things. So for example, in Florida, we have charter schools. We have these classical academies that have been created. I mean, it's like, honestly, it's like education that the kind of the tenets of it from like most of Western history is kind of what they're focusing on, like the really, really important things. And parents love it. They want to have that. They want to have that opportunity. And you don't like that? Fine. There's something else. We have charter schools that focus on specific occupations. Like you want to go into medical, there's a charter school where, it's normal high school, but then you also have the medical component. Prepare you to go to college and then medical school, nursing, all these other things. And it just works out well. So that's what we have to embrace. It's about putting the student before the system. It's about making sure that the parents are in the driver's seat, not the bureaucrats. This should not be about special interest groups. It should be about empowering people to make the most of their own lives. So our example is a testament. And oh, by the way, since I've been governor, we've increased public school teacher salaries by billions of dollars. I've done more increases in teacher salaries than anybody in the history of the state of Florida. Our schools are just our school districts, public school districts, better funded today per capita than they've ever been in the history of Florida. And so, we want everyone to do well regardless, but it's not about protecting monopolies. It's about giving people the opportunities to find the best school for their kids. So, all right, guys, is that it? Do I have time for any more? We're good. So I'm going to see you at the next one. We'll see you at the next one. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See you at the next one. There you go. It's the town hall. And this is how elections are won, okay? They're not won with gigantic rallies. The Trump rallies of 2016, which they're not coming back, guys, okay? Trump was speaking at Club 45 last night when he made his comments pro-Hezbollah, and they were great and smart, and Chairman Xi was great and smart and praising all these dictators and stuff. That Trump is speaking to small rooms. That whole phenomenon of these massive stadiums being filled is just not coming back. It ended. Trump is not doing these massive rallies anymore. He canceled the one in Iowa because of the fake tornado, just like he tried to shut us all down because of a fake virus. And it's not coming back. He didn't reschedule that one. And DeSantis is going around and he's doing what he needs to do. He's now in New Hampshire and he's hitting on all the right issues. Do you guys remember when our social media was censored when Facebook was saying, oh, you're suspended for 3 days. Now you're suspended for 7 days. Now you're suspended for 30 days. And it was because of just having a differing opinion and actually even quoting doctors like Ladapo, Bhattacharya, who DeSantis put in charge. DeSantis doesn't surround himself with swamp people. He doesn't go in. He's not going to go in as president and then start appointing Reince Priebus and these people that have been in D.C. that live up there. He's not going to. When he goes to D.C., he's going to be bringing with him a group of people and appointing people whose names you probably have never heard. And they're young people, because I know some of these guys. Andrew Romeo is one of them. Jeremy Redfern is a great press secretary. And he put up a funny tweet, okay? And Tim Pool had a meltdown over it. And, of course, you got to remember, guys, hurting Tim Pool's feelings should actually be made a federal offense, I think. Tim Pool is very sensitive, okay? He's very sensitive, just like Trump. And if you hurt his feelings, that's a problem. And he's going to be, or Ann Coulter is going on his show. But I want to show you this. Oh, DeSantis was also hitting on BlackRock. And I think that, I wonder if he was listening to Bobby Kennedy's speech yesterday, because Kennedy was just hitting on this. BlackRock is buying up everything and they're pricing people out. So the idea of home ownership is unaffordable, and now you get saddled with student loan debt because they lie to you and they tell you that getting a college degree, and it doesn't matter what your major is, just the fact that you have the degree. Just the fact that you have the degree. This is your ticket to everything. No, it's your ticket to debt, dude. This is your ticket to debt for the rest of your freaking life, okay? And don't go and get a college degree if you don't have to. I remember getting out of college and then I'm 4 years behind everybody. Like, people that didn't go to college, that everybody called stupid, were had started businesses, were doing other things, and making tons of money, and had a house and a wife and a kid by the time I got out of college, and was done partying for 4 years. And they like it when you stay longer. College is a scam, guys. All right, what do you think law school is? What do you think med school is? They're trade schools, okay? Unless you know that you need to get a degree to get to where you're going, don't go to college. It makes no sense. And for God's sake, don't go into debt. So they saddle you with debt. So people graduate college with useless degrees, 100,000 plus in debt, and inflation's through the roof, and BlackRock's buying up everything, and they're benefiting from the war in Ukraine, by the way. I'm so glad DeSantis brought up BlackRock. This was the whole crux of Kennedy's speech in Miami yesterday. And now it's buying a home and having your own property. I mean, that's not even really reality. You pay property taxes, so you really don't own it anyway. But the whole idea, it's the Great Reset. It's you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Klaus Schwab. That's what they are doing. That's what is happening here, and DeSantis is pointing it out. So Jeremy Redfern made a tweet yesterday, DeSantis press secretary, and I thought it was freaking hilarious. This is a great tweet here from Tim Cool. Trump supporters, you now support a guy who dined with Nick Fuentes, correct. Thinks a man can possibly become a woman, correct. Held a pro-trans and pro-pride celebration at Mar-a-Lago, correct. Thinks protecting the unborn is terrible, correct. Calls the pro-life movement grifters, correct. Attacks Netanyahu, praise Hezbollah. That's just who you support, guys. I mean, I like Ann Coulter here is pointing out that Trump or Netanyahu did praise Trump for killing Iran's Soleimani. This is another thing, and I like that Ann's pointing this out because a lot of times, at least I do this, I will just accept what is said as, oh, it's true. And it's today, you can do a quick Google search to detect lies. And all Ann did here was look up lie. Look it up. Did Netanyahu really attack Trump for the killing of Soleimani? Well, no, he didn't. Netanyahu praised Trump. But really, it was actually, yeah, Trump did say that. He said that he didn't give me credit for it. That is a lie. Okay? Netanyahu did. DeSantis hit it on the nose. And I'm wondering if he's one of the people that watches this stream. And please share and like this around. Unless we build up our own streams and build up our own audiences, then all you've got is the Tim Pools of the world. And you've got, and those guys. All right. We need to build up our own platform. So please like this and share this around. Okay. And if you do a live stream or if you do spaces, let me know. And I'll share it around. Look, Hezbollah is still trending. Trump freaking stepped in it with this, okay? Trump absolutely stepped in it. And that was absolutely a disgrace, okay, what he said. And Tim Pool has a producer named Cassandra McDonald Fairbanks who says Israel is going to carpet bomb civilians who cannot flee. And American neocons will act like their team just won the World Cup. It makes me sad. Okay, so this is where Tim Pool is coming from. He's surrounded by people like this who think that Israel is carpet bombing civilians. Oh boy, Roger Stone is trending. Let's check this out. Roger Stone says Trump recently called him and asked if they could pray together. Well, if he actually did that, let's see what Stone says here.
My phone rang, and it was President Donald Trump. And he was returning my call from the night before.
Yeah, wait.
And he said, have you got a minute? And I said, well, Mr. President, let me be honest with you. I'm walking out the door to church. Could I call you this afternoon? And he said, are you going to church right now? And I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, could we pray together? And I said, absolutely.
No. He actually said, can we be gay together? That's what he said. You misunderstood him, Roger. He didn't say, let's pray together. Can we be gay together? Just unbelievable. Do you really think that Trump called Roger Stone and said, can we pray together? Do you? It doesn't sound, it sounds out of character for him. Of course, he's got to publicize this, but I'd like to. I don't know about that, man. Do you think? Does anybody think Trump called Roger Stone and asked if they could pray together? He needs prayer. But Trump doesn't know the Bible. He can't name a single Bible verse, and the Church of Trump is. You got these pastors that are just, they put Trump before Jesus and everything's Trump centric. And let's just say Trump, what God are we praying to here? I mean, does Trump even know? Trump shows no humility at all. Okay. And yeah, he does need prayer now after he stepped in it and praised Hezbollah. And check this out. Melissa Blazek points this out. Something that I missed. I'm glad Melissa's here to point this out. Look what Trump says. He goes off prompter here. You can tell when he goes off prompter because that's when he's looking straight ahead. When he's looking at, see how his head is tilted like that? When it's tilted to the left or tilted to the right, he's reading what somebody else put in front of him and said, this is what you read, okay? They wheel the old corpse out, they put him on stage, and then they tell him, just read what this says, okay? It's that simple. But he doesn't do that. And when he looks straight ahead like this, that's when he goes off prompter, and that's when you see who the real Trump is, okay? And here, he's saying that the attack on Israel could be a con job. Look at this.
Whoever heard of officials saying on television that they hope the enemy doesn't attack in a certain area? Now, unless it's a con job.
See, he went off prompter there.
Whoever heard of officials?
He's listening to people. Okay, Trump is listening to somebody who is not pro-Israel, okay? And they're putting these ideas in his head. And Trump is just a guy that he listens to very bad people. He has a history of this, listening to people like Fauci, listening to Bannon, putting Bannon in his cabinet. Who else has he had around him? I mean, Kim Kardashian. He brings in Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Caitlyn Jenner. Who knows who the libs that love the vaccine that he golfs with. But he literally suggests here that the attack in Israel could be a con job. Worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust.
But whoever heard of officials saying on television that they hope the enemy doesn't attack in a certain area? Now, unless it's a con job.
All right. Okay. So he thinks
Whoever
it's a
heard
con
of
job.
officials saying.
But the fallout from all of this is pretty serious. Yesterday, there were tweets like crazy, and even Ben Shapiro now. Ben Shapiro finally decided that it was time to call this out. And here he is. Here is Ben Shapiro calling out Trump's comments.
To bizarrely attempt to humiliate the current prime minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, because he was given bizarre information that after his loss in the 2020 election, that Netanyahu rushed to congratulate Biden, which of course is not true. He's one of the last world leaders actually to congratulate Biden.
Oh, so
in any
that's a
case,
lie,
here was
too.
Donald Trump going after Netanyahu personally in the middle of a war and talking about how Hezbollah is smart for attacking from the north, which is weird since there is literally no other place that Hezbollah could attack from. They're located in the north of Israel. That's like suggesting that Mexico would be smart if they attacked America from the south. Like, where else would they attack from? They're south of us. Like, what? Here we go.
But I'll never forget that Bibi Netanyahu let us down. That was a very terrible thing. I will say that. And so when I see sometimes the intelligence, you talk about the intelligence, or you talk about some of the things that went wrong over the last week, they've got to straighten it out because they're fighting potentially a very big force. They're fighting potentially Iran. And when they have people saying the wrong things, everything they say is being digested by these people because they're vicious and they're smart. And boy, are they vicious, because nobody's ever seen the kind of sight that we've seen.
He says it like he
Nobody's
thinks it's
ever
cool.
seen it. But they cannot play games. So we were disappointed by that, very disappointed. But we did the job ourselves, and it was absolute precision, magnificent, beautiful job. And then Bibi tried to take credit for it. That wasn't good. That didn't make me feel too good, but that's all right. So they got to strengthen
No, he
themselves
didn't.
up.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
All right. I mean, okay. And President Trump, again, nothing but gratitude for President Trump as a Jew and as an American. Nothing but gratitude for President Trump. I wish you were president right now. But the fact of the matter is that that is bizarre stuff. And attacking the prime minister in a current time of war with a unity government in Israel, by the way, with a bunch of people who disagree, but they do agree on the survival of the Jewish state, is a very bizarre move.
Well, I guess that's the best you're going to get out of Ben, but he said something at least. I mean, this is the best you're going to get from Con Inc. here. And of course, got to give the disclaimer. Oh, I wish Trump was president. Ben, what? You want that to be president? Really, Ben? You want that? You want him in office right now saying that kind of stuff? Biden didn't say that stuff. Right now, Trump is worse than Biden on Israel. I mean, this is something that you would expect Biden to say. And if Biden had said this, Shapiro and all these guys would be up in arms over it. Okay? This is something you'd expect out of him. But we're getting it from Trump. Oh, jeez. So Tim Pool's producer thinks that Israel is going to carpet bomb civilians. All right, so, okay. That might explain some of his tweets and some of his positions. But here is the tweet from Jeremy Redfern. All right. I always did think them Hezbollah fellows were pretty smart. And then he puts the Trump bozo all-star team up here. This is all of them. This is the Trump all-star team, all right? You got Bald Tim Pool. You got Alex Bruzewicz. You got Pogo Stick. Where's Chuckles? Chuckles isn't up here. He didn't put Chuckles up here. Everybody is up here for a reason, okay? Perry Lake, the all-star loser candidate. Pillow guy who's going bankrupt, who's been funding the guy. Then you got, look, Vivek down here. And the best part of this is Stephen Chong right here. Guys, Jeremy is funny, all right? He's funny. And you have to laugh at this a little bit. You don't think this group is funny? I mean, they're about, you got Cernovich here, who is, wear the damn mask, Cernovich. And you got him saying all sorts of crazy things. All right? But the outrage here is, holy F, Jeremy Redfern thinks connecting grandchildren of Holocaust survivors like my friend Gavin Wax to Hezbollah is clever. He deleted the tweet, but the internet is forever. I wish you hadn't deleted it, Jeremy. It's a funny tweet. Okay? So here's my response to this, all right? Are you going to call out Trump for praising Hezbollah? They're more mad at Jeremy Redfern for making a funny meme with Stephen Chung's big face and four, Stephen Chung's face needs 4 circles to fit in. All right. But this guy's not mad that Trump's praising Hezbollah, that a lot of these guys here have said many questionable comments about Israel. Vivek Ramaswamy is, I mean, he's there. He's made anti-Israel comments. Oh, he's saying we should cut off funding for Israel altogether. Okay? He's there. I mean, okay, let's cut off funding for Israel. But their anger and outrage isn't towards that. It isn't towards Trump praising Hezbollah. It's towards Jeremy Redfern for saying, and what Redfern is saying here, by the way, is, hey, look, guys, I mean, you guys all love this guy who just dissed the Israeli president in a time of war when he needs us the most, and then praised the enemy as being smart. Where is their outrage about that? Yeah, and I hope Ann Coulter does call out Tim on his podcast. I mean, you can't, I mean, Tim's podcast is listened to by a lot of people, all right? I was starting to like Tim Pool's podcast, like in 2022. I didn't listen to it before, but I was listening to some of the interviews that he was having. Andrew Pollack was on, and I thought some of these interviews were good. DC Drano's always been a bozo. That's Susie Wiles right there. I think that's Rich Barris. Rich Barris, the pollster, that his polls always come back with Trump at 90%, everybody else 8%. All right. So I thought the tweet was funny, and I think it's more offensive that they're not calling out Trump and a lot of these bozos on their anti-Israel statements. They're more mad at DeSantis. That's who they're mad at. The guy who's actually standing up for Israel at this time when they need him the most. So, all right. Well, I think DeSantis hit it right on. Oh yeah, here we go. Trump is the guy that calls everybody low IQ, by the way. All right, he calls everybody low IQ, but here is the truth about people in Gaza. Over 30% of marriages in Gaza are between first cousins. The average IQ is 67.9. Forrest Gump's is 75% or 75. All right. Trump's supposition that these are very smart people, that's another lie. So he lied about this. They're not smart. They're not intelligent. He lied that Bibi Netanyahu didn't give him sufficient Trump praise. Okay, it's insufficient Trump praise is what Bibi was being accused of. Okay, he didn't do that. He did praise Trump after he took out Soleimani. Okay. He's not telling the truth about people about these being high IQ individuals. Trump did praise him here. And so he's lying about a lot of different things. Oh, yeah. He also lied and said that Netanyahu called and congratulated Biden, which he did, and Trump's pissed about that, and I'm glad DeSantis brought that up. But Netanyahu is one of the last people. He wasn't one of the first to call Biden to congratulate him. And you got to understand with this, too, is that Netanyahu needs American support. So when he sees that, look, this is the way the election's going, even if he thinks that maybe America's elections was rigged, that's not his problem. His country's problem. He has his own problems, all right? But he wants to make nice with who the new American president's going to be, seeing as how the fate of his entire country depends on it. So Netanyahu is going to be very nice. That's why you see him praising Biden. That's why you saw him praising Obama, even though secretly there was a lot of tension between Obama and Netanyahu. But you would always see Netanyahu publicly praising Obama because he needs that tight support from the United States. So that's three things that Trump lied about. And he's being just ripped apart in media about this. So many people came out. So many people in media wrote pieces about this. I mean, you know, NBC, The Hill. It took Trump finally calling Hezbollah very smart for Ron DeSantis to finally take the gloves off. Yeah, DeSantis finally took the gloves off, guys. As he should have. And he's going to go on to win this. And most importantly, Israel news has picked up on this and see it's being used as propaganda by Iranians to say that Israel is weak. Donald Trump criticizes Israel, says Netanyahu hurt very badly by war. All right. Guys, Trump stepped in it this week. Okay. DeSantis's message stays on point. Trump stepped in it. Trump made they can ignore it. The Con Inc. gatekeepers can try to ignore it, but the whole world heard it. DeSantis called him out perfectly on it. And Trump's campaign and Trump's hopes of being president again are falling apart right before him, while the energy is behind Ron DeSantis. And it will continue to stay behind Ron DeSantis. And Ron DeSantis will win. And he will be the next president. I've been saying this all along, and I reiterate it over and over again. Ron DeSantis will be the nominee, and he will be the next president of the United States. I can tell you that. coffee's good. You make good coffee, babe. How would I ever do that? Looking forward to Ann Coulter on Tim Pool. It's going to boost his ratings, but I wouldn't want to debate Ann Coulter on anything. Oh yeah, the people are trying to use this day of Hezbollah, day of rage. Try to say hide in your home, don't go out, be vigilant, but don't change your life. Don't hide in your basement like you did during the fake pandemic. Because some asshole terrorists say that they're upset and angry. See people pushing that. Stay home, watch out, it's a day of rage. Be vigilant, but no, go about your life, man. Don't let medical fascists or terrorist fascists control your life and what you do. Have a great weekend, guys. This is Chris Nelson. Thanks for watching.